Hey everybody, Josh the RV Nerd of Bish's RV, back again with your monthly-ish industry update, and welcome back to the regular returning members of the RV Nerd Herd, by the way. As we typically do, we're going to peel through some stats in this video, taking a look at the current state of the RV industry, but we're also going to gaze into the crystal ball, see if we can kind of divine the future of this whole crazy thing that we're looking at here. I'm using some of my Dungeons and Dragons words today, apparently. Moving on from there, I've got some good news. I've got some bad news, and at the end of the day, I think that just is the news, that there's always a little bit of ups and downs, and what we really strive to do is continue that relentless pursuit of transparency. I could almost say the word relentless, by the way, so that you have a better, more educated, fair understanding of what is happening out there. And if you appreciate how we give you all the information that we can and try to peel the curtain back, hit that subscribe button and share this video into something like your favorite social groups. And in the meantime, let's get going. And lately, I've been, almost every month I've had a new sort of consumer protection buyer beware kind of thing. And sadly, I've got another of these for you now. There are these fakey BS RV auctions out there, and I use the phrase BS to mean bait and switch. It's not that every single RV auction you see out there is false, but I have started to see a number of these dealer-based RV auctions where you better buy the camper before it goes to auction kind of thing happening. Actually, I've seen that kind of marketing for several years now.
You better buy it, the leftover models, before they go to auction.
And people started catching on to this, and they started going, where are these auctions? When does this happen? When could I go bid on it? And there never was an auction. It was always something made up to try to create demand, to try to create urgency. Well, certain groups have figured out that people figured it out. So now they are hosting auctions, but a lot of this is a bit of a dog and pony show. To register for this auction, you have to give them all your contact information. If you start bidding on something, they start noticing that you're bidding. It's funny. A salesperson might reach out to you and say, hey, so you didn't win that auction, but for just $3,000 more, you could have this RV over here. Or maybe you do win something. I have had a number of people come to me and report to me, actual customers, that, yeah, I won the auction on this unit. And then they basically followed up and told me, turns out that they actually just sold that unit from the store, so it's not available anymore. But only $2,000 more, you could have this one over here. There's a lot of bait and switch stuff going on. I can't stand that kind of practice. And again, it's not that every single RV auction is like this, but that is a thing that is happening out there. That's a thing you need to be aware of. That's a thing you need to protect yourself from. And I at least want to teach you how to fish, to arm yourself for that whole, caveat emptor, buyer beware kind of thing. Hopefully that's a thing that stops happening, and there's some legality items that prevent them from doing that. But for now, be advised, be forewarned, and that makes you forearmed. Speaking of forearms, remember that guy from Mortal Kombat? The Hershey RV Show out in Giant, Pennsylvania has concluded very recently here, and there are a lot of people inside and outside of the industry that really look to that as not a guarantee, but a really strong indicator of how the fall RV selling season into the spring RV selling season is going to look like. And a lot of people are seeing it as a very positive sign, an enhanced and almost renewed interest in demand out there. Overall attendance was up 5%. There were some brands like Keystone's Cougar division literally set their best all-time record ever at the Hershey PA show. They sold more units at that event than they've ever sold before. So what they were doing was working, and people were genuinely interested in purchasing something. Coincidentally, have a Cougar coming in the background. Couldn't have done that better if I tried. Anyway, the interesting thing, though, was talking to various dealers, vendors, lenders, any of the people that were kind of there on site working the displays, basically. The sentiment was largely the same. The general feeling was that there was a different level of desire among people attending today. A lot of times at those big events, the event is so big, it itself is kind of the entertainment. Like, there's just so much going on and so much to see that there are, like Saturday alone, they had 13,000 people, and a lot of people just want to walk around and look at all the things. But what a lot of the people working the show said this year It wasn't exactly like that. Yeah, there's the people who want to look, but the people they talked to were like, no, we came here to look at these two models and decide which one we are going to buy. So it's like there have been a lot of people who are kind of held back and a little bit cautious and guarded, who are kind of as a wave hitting this point where they're like, we are going to do this. And that is causing a lot of people to think that we're going to see a little bit of an increase in fall business and spring sale season business once, you know, the calendar year flips over. How that plays out, I don't know. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Flipping the script over, taking a look at the used RV market. Compared to last month, basically the whole situation hasn't really changed. Technically the average values of used RVs across like wholesale auction blocks has gone up just a little bit, but oh my gosh. I'm sorry, I just saw a squirrel. So that's a Eagle Superlight 256 RKS. When I first got into the industry, that was literally my personal favorite camper right there. So to just look over my shoulder and see one, like my spider senses started going off. Sorry, squirrel. Anyway, looking at the used RV market, let me stay on task here. Let's look at the towable market here. If you notice, it basically the bars on the chart look pretty flat. Up slightly, but again, nothing to really write home about. A couple things that I think are worth noting. The average value coming across the block on those used RVs this last month was about $2,500 less than 1 year ago. That's a significant chunk reduction. Another thing I noticed is the average age of the RV coming across that auction block was a 2019. That is now 6 models years? Yep, old. Kind of like rockets boosters. Okay, yes, 6 model years old. The reason that's really important is once something becomes more than 5 model years old, it can no longer qualify for same as new RV financing. So if you're looking at an RV that's like a 2020 or 21, that's kind of at a funny sweet spot where it's gone through its initial value reduction, but it can still qualify, potentially pending approval, for some of the better financing rates and terms out there. When you start getting 6 years and older, sometimes your rates go up, your terms go down. It's just a funny little break point that happens out there. So that's one of those things I thought was kind of worth noting. But looking at the used motorhome market, which obviously I don't have a motorhome behind me, I have an SUV that hopefully is not going to run over me coming up behind me. The numbers there look a little funny. If you look at versus 1 year ago, the average cost of a motorhome coming across the used auction blocks is now up by about $5,000 on average, and that sounds like a crazy high jump. The thing is, the volume of the motorhome market is so much smaller than the towable market, and if you think of the types of motorhomes that are out there, it does not take more than a small handful of really high dollar like diesel pusher, like Class A motorhomes, to instantly skew those numbers to a very noticeable effect. That's why if you look at that chart over time, it's so spiky up and down, because what'll happen is, for whatever reason or another, a dealer decides they need to offload a couple units to get some money freed up, and they run it across an auction block, and they'll push out a couple big motorhomes because that'll free up a lot of money very, very quickly. Well, it causes a little bit of a spike on things there. Some of those big high dollar motorhomes take a little longer to sell, so they tend to stick around a little bit, so those spikes tend to be more exaggerated. On the motorhome thing, you really got to look at the average trend over time, and basically not a whole lot is really changing there. Although it is kind of worth noting, the average age of the used motorhomes coming across the block was 10 years old, and the reason that's significant is a lot of RV parks have a little bit of a 10-year rule, where if an RV is 10 years old or older, they just sometimes by default won't automatically let it into the park. What I'm finding is a lot of property managers, campground owners basically, if you send them a couple pictures to say, yeah, my rig's nice, they're like, okay, fine, come on in. And for some people, that's a problem. So that's another thing to kind of look at and consider when you're out there shopping in the market. Hope that helps. And one of the big recurring messages that I have through these videos is understanding and peeling apart the difference between sales and shipments, because those are two very different metrics. And yeah, they're certainly related, but they're not exactly directly correlated to one another. One thing I just want to state simply is, yes, RV shipments are up over the year versus last year, but overall RV sales are down so far this year. The thing is, last year saw such a dramatic reduction in RV production, what's your function, that even though RV production is up this year versus last year, sales being down, it's actually basically everything is evening out is the best way I can say it simply. But to just absolutely not muck around with words, sales are down this year versus last year. So let's just get that out there in the air. If we look at the most recent stats, which actually come from July, because RV sales registration stats lag behind the real world by a month or two, basically. July saw just about 36,000 RVs registered in the U.S. market. Actually, no, in the North American market, not just the U.S. market. Apologies, I want to make sure I get that clarified. That's down about 9% versus last year. Overall, year to date, we've seen a little over 226,000 RVs get registered. And I think that number actually surprises people. I don't think people realize how many RVs actually are sold out there and the total dollar value that represents. But despite 226,000 RVs being sold year to date, that's down just over 10% versus last year. For the most part, in terms of production, fifth wheels have been treading water. Travel trailers have been about the only RV segment whose production is up. Every other segment's production has been down painfully. And what I think is really interesting is when we actually break down segment by segment how many RVs are sold and who is selling them. And just to let you know, we're probably going to flash a bunch of numbers on screen here pretty soon for you. If you want a little more time to review these as they come up, just pause your playback device, whatever you're watching on, and you should have a lot more time that way to kind of just peel through it however you want. So keep in mind, these are all just July stats, but beginning with travel trailers, we saw a little over 22,000 travel trailers registered in the month of July. Now that's down a little over 9% versus last year. And if you look at who's leading the market share there in order, we have Forest River, Thor, and Grand Design. It's always interested me, tangent. It's always interested me that Winnebago isn't presenting their numbers as Winnebago, but they, like, Grand Design reports separately. That would be like if Jayco reported separate from Thor. I don't know. Maybe they should. Actually, I would prefer that. I would prefer it if instead of being lumped as Forest River and Thor in these reports, that I actually got to see which companies and subsidiaries were actually selling what. I think that'd be far, far more interesting. Over to fifth wheels, it's crazy to me the volume shift. When you go from over 22,000 travel trailers to just over 5,300 fifth wheels, there is a significant difference in how many things are being bought and by whom. But the fifth wheel market's down a little bit more. It's down a little over 11%. The shift there is a little more interesting. In travel trailers, Forest River's #1 overall by volume, but it's very close with Thor. In fifth wheels, Thor is the significant dominant manufacturer overall out there. You've got a couple big names like Jayco, Keystone, probably Heartland in there, all kind of really knocking a lot of fifth wheel numbers around. When we get to the pop-up market, there's not much to talk about. Less than 500 of them were registered in the month of July, and that is almost a surprise to me that it's even that many. It's no real surprise to me that overall Forest River is the #1 pop-up producer out there, because they're one of the only manufacturers in a mainstream high-volume production setting that still even maintain pop-up production. So most manufacturers, like, I mean, Jayco is founded on pop-ups, and they don't even build them anymore. And if you look at the cost of a lot of pop-ups today, I'm not sure I blame them necessarily. And when we look at that volume drop from travel trailer to fifth wheel, you do that almost exact same proportional drop again from towable down to motorized. And I think it really kind of gives you a more real world impression of what the motorized market looks like today. Typically at best, the motorized market is 10 to 12% of the overall RV market. I'm not sure it's even that right now. Like if we look at Class A's, there were almost 750 sold within the month of July, with Thor really kind of leading the way there. Overall, Thor motorized really seems to be dominating that segment. For the most part, motorized overall. In your Class C segment, which I guess you call the highest volume chunk of the motorized market, there were still only about a little over 1,600 Class C's there, with again Thor leading the way on that one. Forest River having about a quarter of the market in the Class C market. Now, you might notice some of these percentages don't always equal exactly 100% if you add them all up. because there's also a bunch of smaller manufacturers who also occupy tiny little wedges in the pie chart, but these are the big three chunks within the pie chart. And then the Class B market that everybody thought for a couple years was a rocket ship on fire and the van life thing was never gonna die is down to under 900 models sold. And I have long felt that a lot of the excitement and the interest around the Class B market was based on the fact that for a long time there, if you wanted a Class C motorhome, they weren't available due to chip shortages, part shortages, and intense demand, and Class Bs were more readily available. So Class Bs saw an increase in sales during that time that I think is now starting to kind of work its way out and, in a sense, expose itself. And I suspect probably the majority of the people tuning into this channel probably think of the RV market exclusively as a United States RV market. But when we're talking industry health and factors, it really is the North American RV market. So every now and then I do like to peek at like what's going on up in Canada. I know that we've got quite a few Canadian viewers who tend to tune into this channel regularly. Thank you very much. Send me some maple syrup. Don't do that. The last thing my chicken nugget dad bod needs is pure tree sugar pumping through my freaking veins over here. By the way, if you want to make your pancakes sound more metal, refer to your maple syrup as tree blood. And have fun ordering that at your local diner. Back on topic here. Sorry, squirrel again. To put it into perspective, the entirety of the Canadian RV market is just slightly smaller than the volume of the American fifth wheel market. It's not an insignificant number, but it's definitely a smaller piece of the pie. It's really interesting to me, though, to look at how vastly more dominant travel trailers are there. I think with things like exchange factors and costs, travel trailers being the more accessible option is probably the way most people tend to go up there. I could be wrong, just a theory. Any Canadian viewers, feel free to enlighten me there. I'd love some clarity. So don't let it be said I was mincing words. Don't let it be said that I was trying to spin something. You saw every one of those stats. Sales are down. That's not the kind of thing you think a sales-based organization would love to share with you. But again, if you do appreciate that we will give you the real facts, whether they're pretty and flowery and advantageous to the goal that maybe we have at the moment, hit that subscribe button, like our video. If you've come back, just leave us a little note that says, hey, thanks guys, or don't, whatever, and we'll keep on cooking here. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at currently. What are we maybe looking at moving forward? Well, I'm no Nerdstradamus, but again, trying to peer into the cloudy crystal ball there. I remember coming into this year, RVIA was, I think they were thinking there was going to be somewhere between 340 to 360,000 shipments, not sales, but shipments for the year. And that was, I think, well, not largely, but one of the factors influencing that was the thought that we were probably going to see a series of Federal Reserve rate reductions beginning back in like February. And then they didn't happen. So the way that it's looking like it'll probably shape up for the 2024 calendar year in terms of RV shipments is about 324,000. So give or take about 10% off of what they were thinking. They were originally projecting a 14% increase versus last year, and it looks like we're going to be off that a little bit, obviously. Now, we are looking at some positive factors out there that may create a climate for increased RV business on both the wholesale and retail side. So both shipments to manufacturers and shipments to customers. Got a loud tractor coming, so apologies here in the background. Thank you, Mr. Tyler. This is Tyler, our tractor guy. He's probably one of the best people I've ever seen at moving RVs. You don't care. I don't know, maybe you do. Leave a note that says, hey Tyler, maybe you're only watching these videos to get a peek at Tyler every now and then. But they are expecting somewhere around 340, 350,000 RVs shipped within the 2025 calendar year. I don't know. Last year I asked the question, how do you think it's going to pan out? And actually, a lot of you viewers were a lot closer to correct than RVIA was. So I guess I'll ask you once again, how many shipments or what do you think the state of the industry is going to be moving into the next calendar year? One of the factors I think that is influencing the prediction that RVA has put out there is we actually just recently saw our first interest rate reduction from the Federal Reserve since March of 2020. They felt inflationary factors had got to a point that they could let off the reins a little bit and allow a little bit more business to happen, a little bit more money to flow through there. And I was surprised. I think almost everybody was expecting to see maybe a 0.25% reduction, which I'll take it. I'll take anything. A 0.25% is more than 0%, certainly. But we actually got a 0.5 point interest reduction from the Federal Reserve. And that affects more than just the RV industry. That affects basically almost any aspect of our modern business and way of life, because essentially our entire world runs on credit. Our entire world revolves around a fairly agreed upon lie. We're all just going to agree this is kind of made up Monopoly bucks, but we're all just going to play according to the rules, all right? That's sort of what's happening here. And the interesting thing is that decision from the Federal Reserve was not unanimous. All the people involved there were not necessarily on board. There are some who are afraid that reducing interest that much that quickly could cause a re-bloom or something like that, a reignition of some wild interest rate factors. I understand that, but I also enjoy not paying more than I have to for something. So personally, I'm looking at it as good news. But I'm kind of curious, folks out there, what's your take on the recent rate reduction? Do you think it's a good thing for our economy as a whole? Are you looking forward to it personally? Do you think it was a mistake? Let us know. Another interesting instance of good news, bad news, where I like the sound of it, but also I don't know that I like how it potentially affects my pocketbook, is what's kind of happening revolving around the de minimis rule right now. So for those who are not aware, this is a federal thing that applies to imports from foreign countries, and at what point things like tariffs and extra inspections and scrutiny is applied. This rule has been loopholed like crazy, and it's one of the reasons that it's something that manufacturers, suppliers, all kinds of people have exploited in an effort to keep costs of things down. But at the same time, because there's not exactly the same oversight on some of these imported lower dollar things as there are on US based manufacturers and suppliers, it's created some just flat out, in a sense, unfair and potentially unsafe scenarios. So what's going on here is if a bundle of goods costs less than $800, the people importing it don't have to pay any sort of import tariffs, and it does not go through near the same customs scrutiny as a lot of other things. The thing is, those things getting imported may not necessarily be made up to traditional US standards and safety factors, or they might be a lower quality part because that's what allowed the value to get down low to be imported with no tariff. And the RV industry takes advantage of this quite a bit. If there's one factor I think every single customer agrees that is important, it's the price tag. So it does tend to be a very major focus item within the RV industry. The thing is, though, there's some really problem children creating a bad environment here. So RVIA has actually been lobbying the government to revise this and borderline abolish the de minimis rule and its exceptions as it would apply to stuff generally affecting the RV industry. And that's where it's really interesting, because that's where it becomes a case of good news, bad news. Because if the items getting imported have to go under more scrutiny to meet US health and safety standards in some cases, or there's just a general tariff for importing it, the cost of that object goes up. But along the way, some of the really cheap junk that has a way of breaking way too fast and easy also kind of gets sort of eliminated, because they can't do that anymore. There's certain standards that have to be met. It has to be made up to the standards that a US based manufacturer would have to match. That means that the general quality of materials and hopefully end result of the completed RV that we would be looking at and using would theoretically go up. But without question, that means the cost factors would go up, and potentially quite a bit in some cases. So, there's you may have heard the name Temu. That is a supplier that sends cheap stuff, that is almost at this point synonymous with cheap junk that's going to break, but it's cheap, into the country, using this de minimis rule so that they don't have any sort of import tariff, so that their stuff can look the same and be cheaper. Like I remember Blue Ox Manufacturing, they've been having kind of a problem with this, where there are overseas knockoff copycats that claim to have the exact same thing that are not made to the same standards as a Blue Ox hitch system. That's why Blue Ox stuff costs more than something often imported. And there can be excellent goods imported, but there's a lot of it that just isn't. Actually, Amazon's another retailer who really takes advantage of this rule. They will order, they have tons of stuff in warehouses that are located just outside of US borders, so that when a US-based customer orders something, they can get it to you for free shipping in that 2 days or less Amazon Prime kind of delivery phase. And if the whole de minimis thing were gone, the cost of our everyday stuff would probably go up, but it's also theoretically possible the general quality of it would go up. So that's where I'm really curious to hear from you folks. What do you think of this? Do you like the idea of seeing, at least better components and materials, better quality items being used on an RV, but understanding that it comes at an increased cost? I love the idea, this is me personally talking, I love the idea that something would be made better, built better, last longer, made stronger. But of course, I don't like the idea of the price tag going up, especially considering I think the general sentiment from a lot of people out there is RVs are already maybe a little too expensive now. But they're considered too expensive now using a lot of the cheap stuff. If they didn't use the cheap stuff, they'd be even more too expensive. So I don't know. Let me hear from you. Which way would you like this to go? And actually a little bit of a midstream update here. Sometimes as I record these videos, before I get them out, a little update to something I was looking at came out after I already recorded a segment. So very recently, at least at the time that I'm recording this, our administration has responded to the RVIA pleas and lobbyists and all that kind of stuff regarding the practices around the whole de minimis rule as it affects the RV industry. And it sounds like the government might actually be taking some actions here. It's a lot of words. I haven't actually seen any real things happen, but the general words being used is that the government says, yeah, we agree that this isn't really fair to US-based manufacturers, and some of the things that are skirting through these loopholes are potentially, not up to U.S. health and safety standards, and we think that if anything's getting brought in this country, it should have to meet our base minimum standards. So it's a lot of words right now. I don't know that any action has actually been taken, or if it necessarily will be, but it does sound like the people on Capitol Hill are at least aware of and listening to this topic. So if anybody gets any more additional insights after I record this, before this thing comes out, or after this video comes out, hit us up in the comment section. Let's share some notes on that. I'm very curious to see how this one plays down, because it could be one of those things that improves the industry in the way people want, but also affect the price tag in the way that people maybe can't handle. And recently here, a new but familiar name came to the list of RV manufacturers out there. You may have heard of the name Bontrager Outdoors. This was founded by like Jason and Austin Bontrager, and if that name sounds kind of familiar, they're members of the Bontrager family that initially founded Jayco RV, kind of like Ashley Bontrager founded Ember RV. They're part of that whole almost like dynasty, like the first royal family of camping at this point. I don't know. Anyway. They founded Bontrager Outdoors in about 2019, and they started with, I think, what was called skinny guy campers or something like that. And their thing was they were making the lightest weight truck campers that were out there, and it was a small outfit. They along the way basically acquired Braxton Creek RV and have gone through a major rebrand on that. So you're now going to see things that were called Braxton Creek are now going to be called Bontrager Outdoors. And that would include, like, you may have seen some of my videos on the channel over the years, like the little bushwhacker campers, and I haven't had a chance to really touch any of that stuff in the last few years. My understanding is it's actually improved quite a bit recently. But what they said here with this rebrand is it's not going to be just a new sticker. They're also going to enhance and expand their lineup quite a bit. So it'll be really interesting to see how that all plays out. Hopefully I get a chance to peek at some of those at the RV open house coming up. And if we have them in our lineup with Bish's RV, I'll do my best to put a couple on camera for you. Something else to keep an eye on all the various like RV content creator channels out there, because I'm not the only guy who waves a camera around these things back here. There's lots of different people cover lots of different things. I encourage you to check them all out. I don't think I'm the only person you should watch. I'm not the only person with an idea or an opinion on campers. I'm just one dude in southern Michigan, basically. But something you're going to start seeing is not just a bunch of new RV, either manufacturers or brands or something like that, but hardware. So like Truma is actually starting to come out their Aventa 2 air conditioner. I think that Furrion Chill Cube that actually was that Furrion came out with, that's actually, it pulls less energy than the original Aventa air conditioner. I think it kind of got into their knickers a little bit, and they've improved, enhanced, revamped their system. It's pulling less power now. It's about 18% lighter on the new Aventa 2 air system. So keep in mind now, it's a more expensive system. That might be something that you see show up on some of the more like higher dollar niche build, like Overland kind of campers, because it is a good powerful air conditioner with a lot of other things like a dehumidifier mode that can run on a lot lower power than many other units. But also Gen Y, you're probably familiar with that name potentially from their hitch pin boxes, but they are actually coming out this really interesting fifth wheel gooseneck wombo combo hitch that could potentially save people a lot of trouble, because I know that like around here in southern Michigan we have a pretty significant farming community where you know, someone's got their big farm trucks, and sometimes they pull a horse trailer with a gooseneck, you know, ball coupler on the weekend to the local horse events, and sometimes they pull their fifth wheel with a fifth wheel coupler to the campgrounds. And not needing to swap a hitch out of your truck bed could be a very cool thing. I don't know the pricing on these. I suspect though they're going to be a little bit more expensive than either a gooseneck or a fifth wheel hitch, but probably less than buying two separate hitches in one. If not, I don't know that it makes as much sense other than just convenience factors. And finally, I just want to say thank you to everybody who welcomed Mr. Garrett Martin to our team last month. For those who didn't catch it, for the first time in my approaching 16-year career, I actually have a partner in crime who's going to be basically the full-time RV nerd video editor. And a couple of his videos have come out. The response has been really positive. He's a more skilled editor than me. His stuff looks better than me. It's, for those who are curious, it's still just me making the videos. It's just somebody else wrapping up the gift for you, basically. It's just somebody else putting on the gift wrap. And that positivity, that nice warm welcoming, because I get that change is kind of scary sometimes. I think it's just awesome how we've really kind of built a very nice positive community, a constructive community around this channel. So again, just from me to you, thank you for the nice warm welcome to my partner right there. So until next time, if you appreciate again how we're trying to do everything we can to give you the straight skinny on everything, hit that subscribe button if you're new with us, like our video if you've come back, and please again, if you found some value in this, feel free to share it among your favorite kind of social groups and help spread that message out there. And until next time, as long as you want to keep listening, I'll keep talking. Trust me, I'll do it. Take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone.